I won't mess you around, dear viewer. I am a Sony PlayStation fanboy. And that's okay, because I can admit it. And they say the first step to mending yourself is acknowledging your faults. But I could be worse. I do own a healthy selection of other, lesser manufacturers, but I digress. One of the biggest franchises for PlayStation is the God of War series. While I own nearly every title, I've never played a single one. And with the new self-titled God of War out, and with everyone ranting and raving about it non-stop, I figured now was the time to finally give the series a go. I guess I'll get around to the new one eventually, but today I'm reviewing the OG God of War, developed by SCE Santa Monica Studio in 2005. This review also coincides with my newfound obsession with component video. Every single retro gaming review on this channel over the last 5 years has been captured with Peasant Composite. But, starting right now, anything and everything that supports component will be used with such. Component rules! I did, however, run into a snag with this endeavour, since my PAL copy does not support a resolution of 480 in progressive mode. PAL does not rule. But I worked around that by playing the NTSC version instead, of which I totally own. No, my chipped PlayStation 2 and trip to Officeworks to buy blank dual layer DVDs has nothing to do with this review. Nothing at all. So yes, without further ado, I present to you, dear viewer, the original God of War for PlayStation 2. In God of War, you play as Kratos, and Kratos is a very, very angry man. However, he has good reason to be, thanks to the mean God of War, Ares. You see, Kratos is a Spartan warrior for the Olympian gods, and was once mentored by Ares himself. But after Ares tricked him into killing his own wife and daughter, a terrible strategy to supposedly harden him up, Kratos, who needed no hardening up in the slightest, is hell-bent on enacting revenge. The goddess Athena then tasks him with slaying Ares, which gives him an excuse I guess, and Ares responds by stomping all over Athens. How does one kill a god though? Well, by retrieving Pandora's box. And that's the crux of this adventure, all encased in a world formed around Greek mythology. God of War mixes elements of adventure games with hack and slashes, with the gameplay being split between exploring, puzzle solving, and frantically mashing buttons. Let's start with the mashing part, as it probably fills the highest percentage of the gameplay. Since old Kratos is indeed a Spartan, he does a lot of fighting. With Athens besieged by Ares and all these underworld goonies, Kratos has plenty of things to fight. I don't think he's ever happy, but scenarios like these are probably the closest he's ever going to get. There are several weapons he can handle throughout the game, with the main one being the Blades of Chaos, which Ares so conveniently fused into Kratos' arms with chains. Nasty! There is your run-of-the-mill moves like a light and heavy attack, as well as the ability to grab enemies, but upgrading your power is a huge part of the gameplay, which enables more damage and new combos. If you're anything like me though, you'll figure out a combo that completely annihilates anything in your path, stick with it, and never learn anything else. For me, it was triangle, triangle, triangle. Obliterates every time, but for those of you who do like variation, there ended up being quite a few moves to try out. Luckily though, the game does ease you into combat quite well, gradually introducing newer and more difficult enemies. So, if you haven't figured out what your killer move is yet, you'll stand a chance. And as a bonus, there are takedown moves for each enemy, activated by pressing O when the time is right. While these do look awesome, be advised that they are quick time events. This might bother some, in fact I know it will bother a lot of you, but they do only make up a small part of the gameplay and are for the most part optional. Stabbing and slashing is only half the fun however, because thanks to Kratos' good standing with the gods, there is the opportunity of magic. Each god will give you a magic power, and these can be used as long as your magic meter is full. For instance, Army of Hades will unleash Souls of the Dead to fight alongside you, while Poseidon's Rage will let you inflict damage on multiple foes at once within a certain radius around you. These are handy in situations where you might get overwhelmed and are worth saving your magic for. Just like the normal attacks, these can also be upgraded. So, how does one upgrade? The answer is chests, along with random crap strewn around the environments. Power, which is red, can be gained from breaking random stuff, but most of it will be gathered by killing enemies and opening chests. These chests are all over the levels, sometimes being in not so obvious places, giving you a motive to explore. These chests also contain health, which is green, as well as the magic, in blue, that is necessary for the special god-powered attacks. There are also unmarked chests that contain Gorgon Eyes and Phoenix Feathers, both of which will increase max health and magic if enough are found and collected. Kratos handles quite well, so I don't really have any major complaints about that. I never really did feel out of control, except for maybe a few sections that required back jumps. But what will really stand out when you first start playing is the fixed camera. This cannot be rotated by you at all, and at first makes you feel like you're not in true control. But luckily, the developers have programmed it wonderfully. Before too long, you'll forget all about the camera perspective being forced, and it actually feels quite natural. The camera does what it needs to do, and it really enhances the look and feel of the game quite a bit. Never did it get in the way or feel restricting, so bravo Santa Monica Studio. God of War also flows quite well. There is a healthy mix of action and cool down periods. In these periods you're given a chance to explore, most of which to find chests which can be quite well hidden, but also to solve puzzles. These are never really too hard, mostly comprising of moving large objects around to advance your progress, but they do provide a nice break from dismembering. That can get tiring after a while. I wasn't much a fan of the balancing sections though. Do people actually enjoy these? Found these a bit frustrating, but then again that might be to do with how uncoordinated I am in real life. There are also a few annoying climbing sections, but overall I'm glad they varied the gameplay. Going back to my original point regarding the flow of the game, the adventure seamlessly goes from one area to another the entire game. Never is any travelling unseen once you're in Athens. I like it when games do this, it gives it an authentic real-time vibe. And to aid in this, there is hardly any loading. There might be the odd momentary freeze every now and again, but for the most part, it's quite a continuous experience. To support this, there are plenty of checkpoints and places to save. In fact, there might be too many checkpoints for a game of this era, but at the very least, you'll never spend too much time on one section. You can also save whenever you want, as long as there is a save spot close by. There were plenty of times where I came across a save point, saved, went into the next room and murdered a bunch of monsters, and then returned to the previous room to save again, ensuring I wouldn't have to go through that battle ever again. While the game is reasonably linear, it's not unheard of to circle around and come back to an area again as well, so it's always wise to save when given the chance.
Thank you! Thank the gods you came back for me!
I didn't come back for you.
God of War is a great looking game and was likely pushing the PS2 hard at the time. The character design really is something else. The enemies are the right mixture of terrifying and cool, even all these years later. They've aged well, and none have that dated, goofy look. Be warned if you decide to play this with a youngin', however. Over the top violence aside, there are plenty of rude bits featured throughout the game, keeping in line with the nature of Greek mythology. You've been warned if such a thing offends.
Stay, Kratos. Just a bit longer.
We've reached Athens. Get your things and get out.
The environments are spectacular too. Mixed with epic set pieces, the world really comes alive and still retains that wow factor, even for its age. I appreciated how the terrain varies as you go as well, as this adds new gameplay elements. I, for one, will never tire of pulling enemies off walls while scaling them. This is all enhanced by the progressive mode too. It looks a million years ahead of composite and even component by itself, although it is annoying that you have to enable this in the settings every session you play. The audio's production values are no worse than the visuals also. Not only is the music epic in nature, helping aid you in feeling like a true Spartan, but the voice acting is top notch by all characters. Our main man Nolan North even voices the god of Hades. This all accumulates in the game's cutscenes to do a fine job of conveying the narrative. This is quite the story-driven game after all, and these are well worth watching. Complete the game, and it will reward you with a bunch of goodies. Not only can you view the cutscenes, but a bunch more bonuses are provided. Really, I felt spoiled. The biggest of which is a documentary on the making of the game, which runs for about 15 minutes. And there are also a few other videos too, like original trailers and one that showcases unused levels. There's also an interactive museum of sorts showing unused character models, as well as a challenge mode. On top of everything, completing the game unlocks God mode, which is an advanced difficulty setting. If you beat the game on that, it'll reward you with even more extras. What a treat. I'm not one to usually play these type of button mashing games, but it's strategic, varied, and engrossing enough that I really enjoyed it. Overall, I'm glad I gave it a crack. The impact this game had at the time can't be understated either. It received many awards and sold and scored incredibly well. Over 4.6 million units moved worldwide, and it currently holds the exact same Metacritic score as its newer self-titled contemporary. God of War is very cheap right now, much like most other PS2 games. But if you don't have a PlayStation 2 kicking around anymore, it also features on the God of War collection that's available on PS3, PS Vita, and the PS Online store. It's also available on God of War Saga, also available on PS3.